Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to do a battle of the short magnums. We are going to compare the 6.8 Western to the very hot, popular 6.5 PRC. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. A lot of you PRC fans are already rolling your eyes about me comparing a 6.8 Western and think he's going to use that really fast 6.8 Western he always shows on his channel. Actually, in today's video, we're going to look at what most 6.8 Westerns get with a 24-inch barrel compared to what most 6.5 PRC get with a 24-inch barrel. Should be a fun video. Let's real quick talk about the history of the 6.8 Western. This cartridge is now coming up on 4 years old. It was introduced in 2021. And what it is a modernized 270 WSM. So what you have is the parent case of a 270 WSM, and it's gotten the 6.5 Creedmoor treatment, which means that they've pushed the shoulder back, so it has a little bit less case capacity than 270 WSM. But what it gives you is the ability to seat out a bullet pretty darn far while keeping it in a short action. This cartridge has really good performance, and unfortunately it's not as popular probably as it should be. The reasons it's not that popular: it doesn't have a ton of rifle support yet. It also doesn't have ammo manufacturer support, so really the only companies making ammo for it is Winchester and Browning. And for the hand loaders, it just has Winchester brass. However, that is changing. People are now starting to be able to get ADG brass, so that's some signs of hope for this cartridge. Ah yes, the 6.5 PRC. The answer to the 6.5 Creedmoor fan that's too embarrassed to admit they're a 6.5 Creedmoor fan. This really is a 6.5 Creedmoor Magnum. This cartridge was introduced in 2018. It actually has about the same case capacity, funny enough, as like a 270 Winchester and a 30-06, but it's shortened and well, it's really well designed. I think you're going to find some pretty good accuracy from this cartridge. And since 2018, this thing has really caught on like wildfire. When I go to local stores, the two most popular cartridges when you see rifles on the shelf are in 6.5 Creedmoor and 6.5 PRC. So Hornady hit it out of the park with this one, and it's a pretty decent performer. We'll go ahead and look at the performance here soon. We're in the Nosler reloading manual. We're going to look at the 142 grain AccuBond long range performance, what the hypothetical you could get hand loading it. Nosler says it's a 26-inch barrel, but we're looking at a top velocity just over 3,100 feet per second, 3,113. And all the others, you're in the middle, 3,000 feet per second. And I've hand loaded 6.5 PRC. I've shot it. This seems about right. Most of the time we're in low to mid 3,000 feet per second. As far as 6.8 Western data, there's kind of only a few choices. One of the big ones is Hodgdon, so let's take a look. All right, let's look at the ram shot powders. Should provide probably the best velocity, especially Grand, and it looks like we are getting just over 3,000 feet per second. This is with a 24-inch barrel as well. A lot of loads you're seeing 29, 28. Hodgdon does give you the pressure that they're doing, so that's not even up to 65,000 psi, so you can definitely get more out of the 6.8. All right, of course, I'm going to show you what the data says in GRT. So what we're going to be using is, again, a 24-inch barrel. GRT does not have the ABLR. I'm going to be using N570, which probably not the greatest powder for a 24-inch barrel. 26, that's a little different. But what we're seeing here is a top velocity with a 24-inch barrel at, basically 3,000 feet per second. So pretty similar to Ramshot Grand. Now let's take a look at what GRT says about the 6.5 PRC. Brace yourselves, it's not as fast as the Hornady book says it is. I know, surprise, surprise. We are going to use the Magic Fairy Dust Powder, Reloader 26, for those lucky enough to have it. This is basically what your max is going to be with the 24-inch barrel. Drum roll, you can see it already, 3,085 feet per second. while staying at around 65,000 psi. That's actually pretty good. Now let's do a head-to-head comparison of the best ballistics it can get with hand loads. We are going to use that 142 grain AccuBall long range with a BC of 0.625, muzzle velocity of 3,085 feet per second. Your energy just at, well, 3,000 foot-pounds. Pretty decent. Recoil, this is in a 9-pound configuration, about 19 pounds of recoil. Very similar to a 270 Winchester. Out at 400 yards, you're almost going 2,500 feet per second. Your energy, 1,961 foot-pounds. 21.7 inches of drop. Let's see how far we can take this out. And at 600 yards, we are getting 2,225 feet per second, and we are still at 1,562 foot-pounds of energy. 63.3 inches of drop, and then this is the wind drift in MOA, 2.92. Now to the 6.8 Western. We are going to use the 165 ABLR with a G1 of 0.620 and a muzzle velocity of 3,020 feet per second. Remember, in GRT it said around 3,000 feet per second with the 170 grain burger. So we're going to add a little bit more velocity since it's a little bit lighter bullet. We are at 3,324 foot-pounds of energy, so 300 more foot-pounds of energy. But with it being a bigger case and having more powder, you're going to get a little bit more recoil. Out to 400 yards. Bolt's going 2,432 feet per second. Your energy, 2,168 foot-pounds. And then it is 22.9 inches of drop. So a little bit more drop versus the 6.5 PRC, but you're getting 200 more foot-pounds of energy at 400 yards. Let's go ahead and take this out to 600 yards. The bullet's going 2,166 feet per second. And you are at 1,719 foot-pounds. So you have about 150 foot-pound advantage when you shoot the 6.8 Western. You have a little bit more drop, about 3 inches more of drop at 600 yards. And then the wind drift, 3.04 compared to like 2.9. Not a huge difference, but the slightest advantage for the 6.5 PRC. Lastly, let's see how factory ammo compares to factory ammo for each cartridge. Again, the 6.5 PRC kind of annihilates the 6.8 Western when it comes to availability. For whatever reason, 6.8 Western has been treated like the redheaded stepchild of the ammo industry. But let's go ahead and look at Winchester ammo that does supply you with the 142 ABLR. And your muzzle velocity, 3,020, 2,876 foot-pounds of energy. And we can take this all the way out. We'll just go to 600. Bolt's going 2,172. You're just under 1,500 foot-pounds of energy. And then this is the drop in mils, 3.08. And then the windage in mils, a 10-mile-per-hour wind at 600, 0.88. So pretty decent, even in factory ammo. We're going to use the Winchester 165 ABLR ammo. You have a muzzle velocity of 2,970 feet per second, 3,232 foot-pounds of energy. So about a 350 foot-pound advantage, but out to 600 yards. Your bolt's going 2125 feet per second, so almost 50 feet per second slower. But you still have about 150 foot-pound advantage for the 6.8 Western at 1654. And then with drop in mils, you're at 3.21 at 600 compared to 3.08. And the windage in mils, well, basically identical with the tiniest of advantage for the 6.5 PRC. As much as I would like to crown the 6.8 Western as the champion and the king of short action magnums, unfortunately, it doesn't have enough support yet to be able to hold that crown. Not sure the 6.5 PRC is really the king of short magnums either. Honestly, that probably goes to the 300 WSM. Despite that, if you're a hand loader and you get the 6.8 Western with a 26-inch barrel, oof, watch out. This thing is incredible, as I've shown on my channel. If you are a factory ammo user, I think it's a no-brainer. Get a 6.5 PRC.